Hello YouTube. Today I'm just gonna make a video going over my starter guide for Erika 2 in Season 9. So I just want to start this video off by saying, yes, I am going to be playing an Erika 2 starter. Um, Going back to the video that I released about my tier list, I do think Gemma 2 has been knocked down a peg or two. The changes to the talent tree is very negative for her. I do think she will still be a very strong and solid character in the late game, but she won't as easily get the ball rolling early, but it will still be completely fine. That being said, my moderator Thor has gone ahead and made a Gemma 2 starter guide, just helping you through the campaign and, get to Troves 7 and stuff. It's a very good campaign. He's a very good Gemma 2 player, and I can highly recommend people to just follow his advice. Okay, now going back to Erika 2. I want to give my honest thoughts about Erika 2, especially now that we have access to TLIDB, because some of my thoughts have changed a bit. I think, defensively speaking, Erika 2 is in a very rough spot. You don't have a lot of options for bolts in late game, and the only ways to really get defense is to either just have like a semi-scuffed defense setup and going deck stacking, because deck stacking itself doesn't give you any defense, so you need to find defense from your other items, like doing a shield with 20% max res, which is a very powerful tool we will have next season. If you do not know, the implicit on shield roll 5 max res, so if you dream enchant your shield, that's 10% max res, and then if you get a T0 max res roll, that goes up to 10%, which is another 10, so it's 20% max res. That being said, though, I do want to clarify exactly what I mean when I say that she's a weak starter. Relatively speaking, the amount of currency that you need to spend... So, the power curve for Erika is from the start of the game until like timemark 8, I think it's a pretty smooth and easy sailing. She's not as fast as a character like Selena. She's not going to be as fast as a Rosa 2. She's not as fast as an Erika 1, but she's not bad. She's decent. I can consistently kill Trav 7 in like the 5 to 6 hour mark, and I'm by no means like the greatest, most fastest speed player ever. That being said, though, she does get hit a bit of a bump once you reach timemark 8 to get to Profound, simply because all of her builds is very like not the same as how you actually start her. So when you league start Erika, you generally play Thunderspike, and you use your Thunderspike to apply noms. And you can keep pushing that build, but just being honest with you, one, if you're gonna play Thunderspike, just play Erika 1. She just does it better. And 2, it's not a very fun skill. I do like highly recommend to transition out of it into one of the fun skills, because Erika 2's specialty is just how many fun like skill she has availability to. Which means you're in this like deep rut for a long duration in timemark 8 until you can get your other build up and running, and then scaling that into Profound and eventually Deep Space. That being said, though, Erika 2 is the fastest character in the game. She has 2 hero traits that give you access to mobility. Dazzling Lightning is going to give you a lot of mobility in the late game, because you'll be getting 5% per electricity stack, and you'll have 6 electricity stacks, that's 30% mobility. Swift as Lightning will also be giving a lot of movement speed. It's going to give you a total of 20% movement speed, so you get 50% movement speed from your hero trait. And Wild Lightning scales with movement speed, so you're forced into movement speed, which also makes it viable for you as an Erika player to then get Preserver of Eternity, which is even more mobility in the character. She is a late game monster. She's a speed former. She's not that tanky in the sense that deck stacking itself is very not tanky, which is unfortunate. But she's gonna get the job done. If you just want to blast maps and speed form stuff, I do think she's a very fun character. If your goal is to kill SS21 as fast as possible, there are a lot of other options that are gonna be significantly better. Generally speaking, when I make my guides, I assume people that like are playing this game that want league starting stuff, their goal is to get to SS21. And they want the easiest, like least path of resistance to 21. That being said, I fucking love Erika. I cooked up some insane builds, so let's go over this guide and we can just go through them. So I've done a few campaign runs, I do have a loot filter, which I will have in the description of this video. I can highly, highly recommend use it. The loot filter is also linked here. This loot filter is specifically made for Erika 2, but it will also work on characters like Erika 1 and Rosa 2, if you're happening to play them. Because this filter is basically just focusing on attack-based builds. It is showing you like, it's showing you items that drop that have good modifiers for an attack-based build. You know, and the whole goal of this is just, when you play the campaign and we play through the timemarks and stuff, it's really time wasting to pick up every single item you drop and then like look at every single item. It's like, oh, is this an upgrade? No, it's a friction effect. Is this an upgrade? No, it's spell damage. You know, like you're playing an attack-based build. You know what you want. So that should definitely cut a bit of time out and just a little bit of resistance out in your leveling experience. The guide is, the loot filter is only up to T7. I haven't configured it out for T8 and onwards. Maybe I'll update it today on stream to include T8, because I don't think Docs filter is going to be available day 1. But generally speaking, in the late game, I do swap the Docs filter because I do like to hide some uniques. And I can't hide uniques until we actually start the season and we know how much they're priced for. So early on, it is worth picking up every single unique. Now, going through the campaign as Erika, it's a pretty standard, just a pretty standard experience. You're going to start off with Thunderstrike and Haunt. Now, in the new season, we'll not have access to Swift Shadow Strike, Rage Strike anymore. If you don't know, Swift Shadow Shadow Raid used to be a mobility skill that when you hit an enemy, it would consume an agility blessing and then reset its cooldown. And as Erika, we were able to go perception on our main tree, and essentially from the top onwards, the entirety of the campaign, you would just hold down that button and you would go sonic boom speed. And you could even do animation cancelling in the past, where you would hold down the button while also using spiral strikes, and you just got the most absurd amounts of speed in the campaign. It does seem like they're trying to fix things like that. Next season, we do have access to Flicker, but I believe it's only a 24 talent. I do think your mobility options is going to be to run a Spiral Strike and then a Blink. Run a Spiral Strike with a Blink, and throughout the campaign, you're just going to be spamming these two buttons the whole time. Now, for your abilities, you're going to be getting Haunt early on your character. Then, I believe, at the very start, you're going to use Hardened. If you get some critical build, then you swap to Electric Overload. And there's going to be a short time where you're using like a 3-link with like Hardened Electric Overload. You will be swapping that Hardened out to added Lightning. You're going to get this in Act 2. It is a very, very, very powerful link. And you're essentially going to be using it for most of your campaign up until Trav 7. You only really replace this when you get to like my gear point right now, which is like full tier 3, tier 2 gear, ready to do Traveler 7. And also, this is essentially what you're looking for when you're and timemark 8 and then preparing for Traveler 7, is all of your gear wants to have tier 3, tier 2 modifiers on them. Because I did this run near the end of the league, I did not have access to any uniques from the like auction house because nobody's like picking up shit uniques anymore. Nobody's selling them anymore. Normally uniques are 1 C on League Start, like 1 FE on League Start, are now costing 30. So the only gloves I was able to pick up were these because they're extremely common. And then I just upgrade all of my gear up until T2. And doing that, as you'll be able to see, I'm still reaching around almost 200 million damage. And like, if you're going into Trav 7 with 200 million, you're way more than enough damage. Okay. But I do go over into the guides and stuff. I talk about the various treasure troves. I have done some experimenting, so I'm going to mention some stuff. I think next season, when you get the treasure trove level 27, you should farm this trove out to get the Splash Shadow. It received a massive buff in the next season, and it's going to definitely be worth to pick up. But if you don't get it, you do get access to owner lists in the campaign shortly after, and this is good enough. This is a very, very good necklace. I use this for like a super long time, and every time I do the campaign. I do think it's just going to be slightly worse than the Spy Shadow. And also, in Treasure of 35, I wouldn't farm it too many times, but trying to get like 2 of these immolation daggers is very... Not immolation, sorry, it's imploration daggers. Is going to be very worth your time. They are pretty strong. They will show up as being like worse than your current weapons. But relatively speaking, you only really start to replace them when you start picking up weapons that are around in the 20 to 25% better range, which is normally at the end of the campaign. And early on, they're very, very powerful for like another 15 levels. And then other than that, I think all the notes within the guide are pretty self-explanatory and pretty helpful. I have updated now the campaign with the new trees. Now, you'll see that there's 4 trees here, and there's also 2 trees here. What's going on with that? I made a very safe setup, doing Gods of Hunting Assassin, and then Ranger Ronin. This is a super safe setup that I know will work. I know the setup will get you to troves 7 and to timemark 8 without any problems. But looking at the numbers on focus skills for the next league, I do think the best setup is actually going to be going into Still Vanguard to pick up Knowledgeable, and then going to Lich to pick up Off the Beaten Track, because this is going to allow us to run 2 focus skills, and 2 50% auras, and a 10% aura, which... The numbers on these focus skills are very, very, very strong. They are absurdly powerful, and they will definitely like be a massive boon to your like main skill. Now, I do in this guide, I show you the links that I would suggest you have at the end of the campaign, plus minus. This is like what I normally have, and then I also have like a campaign to T8 section, where I show the new willpower skill, because it's very, very powerful, and I think it's really worth going for. Instead of life source, what I did on this character, for example, is I went Bull's Rage, because in Blade Runner, I just picked up these life regain nodes, and this like is more than enough sustain for me that I don't need more life regen. If you need some more damage, you can consider trying that. You just need to find a good source of life regen in the tree, which it's definitely a bit harder now with the new trees and stuff, but you will see that the new trees are very powerful. They concentrate them a lot more, and you get a lot more bang for your buck from the trees. And that's overall buff to the players, I think. And then here I have some of Thunder Magus. You can just replace this with either focus skill. And if you do the knowledgeable setup, you would have 2 Magi. Wait, sorry, not Magus, Imbue. You would replace the Imbue skill with Thunder Focus or Cuteness Focus. And I'm probably going to be running a Cuteness Focus. I think it's more consistent than Thunder Focus. And later in the game, I plan to actually transition into Cuteness and Thunder Focus. Other than that, everything is quite self-explanatory. I show you some good uniques you can pick up. I show you like a crafting guide for like a life-based setup. Generally speaking, I will be sticking with like a life-based setup until troves 7 is down, because it's just easier. It's less swapping to do in the campaign, essentially. Because throughout the campaign, you're obviously life-based. And then you finish the campaign. I don't want to, like, before troves 7, need to recraft all my gear and put a yes on everything. I want to kill troves 7. I want to get a top 3 clear or top 10 clear for my, like, primos. Once that's done, then I can start, like, taking my time and start swapping to, like, my real endgame setup, which I personally love going energy shield every league. I just prefer it. Strength-based setups with armor is very powerful next league. Extremely powerful. Armor got such a massive buff, and I already thought that armor was quite overpowered, and it looks even better next league, that I might need to reconsider that, and actually look and think if it's actually worth it for me to go an energy shield setup or not. Because the benefits of energy shield is definitely very diminished as of recently, with all the nerfs that energy shield has received, and then the buffs that's going towards armor gear. If you do this, though, you would go for armor and not for dexterity. Sorry, not for evasion. I do think evasion is quite bad. The evasion definitely is not in a good state at all, unfortunately. It would be much better if evasion gave some sort of mitigation on top of the evasion. Or maybe like a partial evasion, where it's like, instead of evasion just being like a luck mechanic to either dodge or not dodge, you evade, quote unquote, 75% of the hits. That would be a massive buff to evasion builds, and it would definitely be very helpful to deck stackers. But at the same time, I think the reason they don't want deck stackers to become even more stronger is because you do get a lot more movement speed as a deck stacker, which means you're giving up your defenses for mobility, which I do think is a fair trade-off, so I don't hate it.
Meow, meow.
And then I do also have here an experimental setup. This is what I personally will be doing this link. And this is going to be a focus whirlwind setup. Now, interestingly, we do have focus speed modifiers on TLIDB for like various gear slots. But on TLIDB, even though these modifiers have like a T2, a T1, a T0 roll range, like, you know, various roll range and stuff, it does show as being an item level requirement of 100 to roll them on any item, which, if you're not aware, that essentially means that any focus-based modifier will be limited to an item level 100 base. Oh, wait. YouTube, I'm so happy right now. I'm so happy. They fixed it. This was at first showing as being item level 100 only, which was actually a massive nerf to my build plan, and I was kind of thinking if it's still going to be worth it or not. The build is still on, it's still going to be very good. And throughout progression, you can obviously pick up various focus speed modifiers on your gear. Like in T7s already, when you're like busy making your gear for Trav 7, you can pick up some focus speed for your cuteness focus. But my build that you see here is specifically set up for, after you kill Trav 7, to swap to a Thunder Focus, a Cuteness Focus setup. And in this setup, we will be running these are two main skills. We'll use Thunder Focus with Thunder Focus Tremor to get 10 num stacks, because if you know anything about Erika 2, the biggest, most popular character is to get to 10 num, because without 10 num stacks, we're missing a lot of damage from our hero trait. And then we'll also be proccing a Cuteness Focus every second hit. I do want to talk about that quickly. So, with a Cuteness Focus, you get 25 focus per hit. And okay, let me just explain something that I'm a bit unsure about from what we've seen on the reveal trailer. If you look at a Cuteness Focus, on hit, we will gain 25 points, and you need 100 focus points for it to activate, which would mean that if you have 300% focus, each hit will give you 100 focus points, and we will be activating a Cuteness Focus. But watching the reveal trailer in slow motion, the way I think this works is that the initial hit will get you 100 focus, then your next hit activates it. Then your next hit gets you 100 focus, then the one after activates it. So even with 300% focus speed, we do need to attack twice in order to activate a Cuteness Focus. But that should not be an issue for us, because we will be using a Whirlwind, which has quite a large amount of attack speed just natively in it, to activate both our focus skills. Unfortunately, Whirlwind does have a movement speed penalty on it, which sucks with Thunder Focus, but when I was testing it out, I could not find a way to make Savage Charge feel good for Cuteness Focus, because to be able to reliably hit the same target over and over again, you just need to like keep running your face into them, and you have various times where you're like just not hitting the target, doing a 360 to like, sorry, a 180 to like turn around and go back to them. Whereas with Whirlwind, you can just constantly spin around the target, and as you're spinning and moving, you're just activating Thunder Focus and Cuteness Focus over and over and over again. With the setup, again, we would do off the beaten track to go double focus, double 50%, and then swiftness for movement speed. And then also, I've been 3D-crafting various endgame setups. I will continue to 3D-craft endgame setups, so after this video's out, if you look at the sheet, there will be more in the sheet. That is going to be my plan for like the next few hours until I go to bed, and then hopefully have a very good league start. But just to give a brief overview of them, the first setup is an aura stacking setup. I do think with this setup you would probably want to do a rhythm rain of arrows, and this build seems absolutely absurdly strong. I think this is going to be probably the strongest build you can do on Erika 2 this league. It's going to give you access to 80% damage reduction against armor and fizz ally damage, thanks to having access to armor effectiveness now more easily. And you will obviously use an armor aura. You will have, I said 10k plus ES here. This is realistically like more like 20k plus ES. You will have an instant amount of ES from Energy Fortress. You'll have 3 damage auras that are all like getting scaled with 270% aura effect. You're gonna have a Giga 200 weapon with a Death's Touch, which is just gonna give you like 15,000 plus flat damage. And then lastly, the new order setup for Rain of Arrows specifically is beyond absurd. If you don't know what order stacking is, essentially, every single like slate next league is going to be like a 10%, 8% additional damage multiplier. If you don't know this, they have nerfed pretty much every single slate in the game. Every single slate mod has been nerfed. And where do you see slates? Every single slate mod has been nerfed, but order slates are still absurdly powerful because every single order slate has this modifier on them. 0.13% additional attack damage for every point of order. 0.13% additional fire damage. Additional lightning damage. Now, this 0.13 translates to 13% additional damage. And with the new 200 order mode, we will always have 100 order and we'll have 25% order effect, which means every single one of these slate modes is essentially 16.25% order is 16.25% additional damage, and with an optimal pedigree setup, we can fit in 24 of them, which means we are getting 3,710% additional damage just from our slates, which is absolutely beyond absurd, and it blows any other like stacking or stat in the game out of the water. And we will also be very strong defensively, thanks to having just a large hit pool and having 80 max. Sorry, we won't have 80 max res. Having a large hit pool and having a lot of damage reduction thanks to armor, especially with armor just being a lot better this league unbuffed. Now, if you don't want to do an aura stacking setup, I also came up with a Legless setup. I think Legless is going to be very, very powerful next league. The big downside of Legless... Okay, let me just first show people what Legless is, in case you don't know. Legless is a helmet that, for every lightning res that you have, you get lightning penetration. And you can corrode this, so it's like 2 lightning pen for every 1 lightning res, which, if you have 90 max res, this is essentially 180% lightning penetration. Which, if you don't know how resistances work for enemies, if an enemy has 30 elemental res and you have 30 penetration, you are doing 30% more damage to them. If you then have another 30%, so they're at minus 30 res, you are doing... let me just get out the numbers just in case. Just in case I've messed up. Yeah, so here, I have for 82 Elipen, the dragon has 30 elemental res. So having 52 pen is another 52% additional damage. So if you have 60 Elipen, not only... If you have 60 Elipen, you essentially are doing double damage. Sorry, if you have 70 Elipen, you're essentially doing double damage. Because imagine you do a hit of 100 damage, and the enemy has a resistance of 30. You're doing 70 damage on them. Now, imagine you're doing a hit, and you have 70 pen. Well, not only are you doing 100 damage, you're also doing a bonus 40 from the minus 40 LA pen. So you're doing 140 damage. So being able to have 180 pen from that is equivalent to doing almost 4 times as much damage just through your elemental penetration. But the big downside of Legless is that One, you get minus 10% additional damage when you have a boots equipped, which is not a big deal. We gain way more damage than just 10%. And secondly, you will have no erosion res. You have so much minus erosion res that trying to cap it out is just pointless. But that's where the nice thing comes in. With the new Thunder Baptism that you can get on shields, you can convert 100% of your erosion damage to lightning, and you get lightning max res. This was literally made for Legless, and because we're running a shield, we also get to get like 80 max res quite free. So this setup is going to have 90 max res, and we're converting all our erosion damage to elemental. The only sort of weakness in this build is we don't have that much strong mitigation against strength damage. But, you know, you can like run additional percent additional first damage taken on a shield and, you know, just find here and there some DR to like make first damage not as big of a problem. I could not find a good modifier that you put on the cane, so the only source mod that made sense to me is just getting the deck stacking one, because we're either way doing a deck stacking build, and we want as much lightning damage as possible. And then the third setup that I cooked up, which is probably my favorite build in the game, and this is just a Surging Inspiration Spellburst setup. I actually have cooked up 2 of these. I cooked up a Surging Inspiration one, and I have a non-Surging Inspiration setup cooked up, which just focuses that uses the new Salt River helm. I personally think I am probably gonna try and do this setup first in the league because it's something that's new to me. I've done ore stacking before, I've done deck stacking before, you know. I've never done a max spellburst build, and I think they're very interesting. And especially with the Salt River, it will be possible to reach 30 hits per second again, which I think is very, very powerful and should look very cool and just fun. But on the Searching Inspiration setup, we will be using Heart of Corona, and we will be doing Mega Stacking for our defenses. As you know, Mega Stacking has been nerfed, so this might be a bit iffy. This might be a bit oof. I'm also going to be using an Energy Fortress to get some big ES, but I did the math on it and stuff, and I think Mega Stacking, even with the nerfs, are still going to be very powerful. Because we're going to be able to reach the 50% DR on both Rock and Erosion Megas. And then on top of that, we're going to have ×3 damage transfer from the Megases. And we can also go into Alchemist to get another damage transfer. It's not super duper ideal. It's not going to be nearly as tanky as some of the other builds here. But it's kind of my baby. I just enjoy these types of builds. I love spell-based builds. And I think the new Heart of Corona is very interesting to play with. And something I did see on the shield that is going to be a very powerful tool to make us feel tankier is Prophecy of Immortality. Having access to both energy buffer and restoring life when you take damage is an absurdly powerful tool. To the point where I think that actually is going to make the build not feel that bad to play. But anyway, YouTubes, I'll keep updating the sheet. I hope you guys enjoy this guide, and I hope this guide is helpful. So, I think the cat's out the bag. I will be starting Erika 2 again. It's gonna be very difficult to find a league where I do not start Erika 2. They really have to, like, completely and utterly put this character in the dumpster for me to not want to play her. Because I absolutely love catgirls, and I love my catgirl Erika, and I love my swap builds. But that's all gonna be all from me today. Thank you all so much for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all guys next time. Bye. Bye, YouTube. Bye.